All right, good morning, Kenya, and welcome to your favorite morning breakfast show. It is New Day, and we are live on Ebru TV. And of course, it's the first day of April, but that didn't come with it obviously came with its own fair share of troubles. Because Leo, I woke up in the morning, and the first thing that I saw on my timeline, because when you wake up on a Jatui generation, by the way, you wake up while going through your socials and all of that shebang. So when I get up, people are engaged, people are expecting. It's April Fool's Day. So what are you going to be doing for April Fools? And let me know, what is the biggest joke you've heard, or what is the most surprising thing you've experienced this whole morning when it comes to April Fool's Day. But besides the points, we already have our conversation of the day. Nakama Kawaida, I am Aziza Hashim. And on today's show, we're going to be focusing on something very, very important because, you know, Kama Kawaida, we have good music, good conversations. We let you know on what's currently happening in Kenya and beyond. And we also have some pertinent issues that we discuss right here, things that you go about on a daily basis. So today we're going to be focusing on parenting. And today, Yani, y'all asked me, do you always have this one friend that you ask about every single show? Today I had a different friend, and that friend of mine was a parent, because I'm not a parent yet, but it was important to learn from the different side of the coin. So there's one thing that this particular friend of mine told me. When it comes to parenting, it's not something very easy, and it's not something that you just wake up to and, oh my God, I'm a parent. It's something that is step by step. It's gradual, because this is a whole human being that you're raising. It's not something quite easy. It takes a lot, and it takes a lot of preparation. It entails a lot of things, and especially during this digital era, how has parenting changed? What are some of the things that you can do to tune into your children? Have you ever had of a kid saying, "Yani me, I don't think my parents understand me"? How do you establish that level playing ground that you can be able to understand each other? You're understanding your child, and your child is understanding you. How can you be able to instill self-esteem in your child? And while you're at it, how far is too far? Because you can go and practice over control, and they end up being distant from you. They end up being distant rather from you. And yeah, what does the whole parenting entail? So that is what we're going to be focusing on today. And kama kawaida, I don't want to be a part of the conversation alone. I want you to also be a part of the conversation. So please make sure that kama kawaida, when I interact with us, that is on social media, make sure that you're tagging us at Ebru TV Kenya on Instagram and on Twitter, on Facebook at Ebru TV KE. Official hashtag is New Day KE. You can also send us a WhatsApp. My favorite people in the world, kama kawaida. WhatsApp team paragraphs, kama kawaida. Last week we did the thing, but this week we're going to make sure that we're sampling out all of your comments, all of your questions, and you can also ask our panelists some questions, because we have two panelists who are going to be discussing this particular issue with us, and I'm going to be introducing them in a few minutes. One of our panelists is already there. Her name is Victoria. If you could zoom into her, she's looking kind of calm, very collected. I can't wait to have that discussion with you. And of course, WhatsApp number kama kawaida 0777 672 230. But for now, we need to get straight into it. We're going to start with what is currently happening on today's dailies. So let's start with the People Daily. Alafu, we're going to come back to the stories. That is basic news recap. All the stories that our team managed to capture as of yesterday. But for now, tuanze na nani, the People Daily, starting with the front page, because we have a lot that was happening yesterday. We have the Kiambaa legislator who unfortunately passed due to COVID complications. So the title reads, Humble Member of Parliament who wielded huge authority. And of course, that story continues on page 5, where we'll basically be taking a look at President Kenyatta when he led Kenyans in mourning Kiambaa legislator Paul Koinange, who died in a Nairobi hospital yesterday morning. So we're going to be taking a look at that in a few minutes. But for now, we also have another story, which is the top story on this particular newspaper. That is the People Daily, and it reads, President Raila phone chat that calmed BBI fear. And a bit on that, with regard to the unity pledge in this particular story, the morning conversation between the two handshake partners dwelt on the state of their union and future of the law amendment project following murmurs of discontent from ODM leaders that Uhuru was no longer enthusiastic on the relationship. That story, of course, continues on page 4 with regard to the BBI tussle. A lot of people were of the opinion that, there's a bit of a shake when it comes to the handshake. There's a lot that the president, that is Uhuru Kenyatta, and Right Honorable Raila Odinga are not agreeing on. So we'll be taking a look at that story and what it means for the referendum and BBI in general. But moving on, we also have the AstraZeneca vaccine, and it runs out as Sputnik arrives. And this story continues on page 6 and 7. And it basically entails the entry of Russian COVID-19 vaccine that stars debate with private hospitals saying they had run out of the government-funded job. Because in as far as the Sputnik vaccine was concerned, it was not passed by the Ministry of Health. But now private hospitals are of the opinion, you know what? For us, we run out of the AstraZeneca vaccine. That's why we decided to resort to the Sputnik vaccine that comes from Russia. But moving on swiftly, Kenyans are unhappy with the spiraling debt patterns. In a survey, majority said they feel anxious, angry, or fearful about the level of Kenya's borrowing, because apparently we've been borrowing a lot. A vast majority of Kenyans are unhappy with the country's debt levels, according to a survey. This comes at a time when all indications show that the 9 trillion debt ceiling is likely to be lifted to enable the government rather to borrow more. We had a 9 trillion debt ceiling. We were not supposed to surpass that, but it looks like we're going to be surpassing that particular debt ceiling as the government is going to be borrowing a lot. As of February, Kenya's debt stood at 8.58 trillion, according to the Director General of Treasury's Public Management Office, that is Haron Sirima. And President Uhuru Kenyatta assented to the supplementary appropriations bill, paving way for the government to borrow 125 billion to supplement the 2020-2021 budget. So what does that mean for Kenya as a country? We are indeed borrowing a lot. Okay, we're going to come back to this page because this is usually my favorite page. And you wonder why the president of Tanzania's face is on this particular page. I'm going to be explaining that in a short minute because there's something that the State Mining Corporation did that was just absurd. So we're going to be taking a look at that. But moving on swiftly, still on page 4, the conversation that I told you earlier with regard to President and Raila phone chat that calmed BBI jitters. Of course, this is according to sources, and they say that conversation between the two partners dwelt on state of handshake and BBI following murmurs from Raila camp that Uhuru was, of course, not keen on the issues. People were saying that, he's not focusing on the BBI anymore. He's not as dedicated as he was to the handshake. He just wants to focus on other things. But now this gives us, of course, a shift with regard to the BBI jitters and the murmurs that were going around with regard to this particular report. And an hour-long early morning phone conversation between President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga yesterday inspired the opposition chief's meeting with his lieutenants to diffuse what was, of course, growing uncertainty over the Building Bridges initiative and the handshake. And in brief, what it particularly means is that Raila met with party officials to discuss recent developments in the country. And of course, out of this, he reaffirmed ODM's commitment to the spirit of the handshake with President Uhuru Kenyatta, as well as the Constitution Amendment Bill of 2020, that is a product of the Building Bridges initiative. And of course, the BBI process has been thrown into disarray following Uhuru's directive suspending parliamentary seatings and in-person meeting, all in an attempt to curb the spread of COVID-19. And taking a look at the Kiambaa lawmaker, Koinange, so humble yet so powerful and rich. So leaders were mourning a politician whose self-effacing nature bellied his background and huge achievements. And of course, Kiambaa Member of Parliament Paul Koinange, pardon my diction, who died yesterday at a Nairobi hospital, was of course termed as a humble and calm politician who wielded immense power and influence behind the scenes. And of course, there's a lot that has been said about him, and we'll be taking a look at that when we take a look at the news recap. But moving on to the Daily Nation, we can see there's, of course, the main conversation that we were talking about. And the Daily Nation reads, it's official, Raila in State House race. And of course, it's no longer a question of if the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga wishes to take a fifth stab at the presidency, but whether his two opponents will step aside to give him a free pass or take him in the primaries and let the members decide. And of course, that story continues on page 7 because there's a lot of controversy and a lot of questions that were being raised with regard to whether Right Honorable Raila Odinga is going to be on the ballot come 2022. But now it's official. He's going to be on the ballot. So the question remains, are the two other opponents going to let him just move on with it? It's only a matter of time. Wait and see. Sawa. So 3 counties run out of free COVID-19 vaccine. That's the AstraZeneca vaccine, what we were talking about still on the People Daily. And just briefly on that particular conversation is at least 3 counties have, of course, as I stated earlier, run out of the AstraZeneca vaccine, with hospitals turning away thousands of eligible Kenyans, including the elderly, who are, of course, supposed to be a priority. An acute shortage of the jab has been reported in Nyeri, Nairobi, Murang'a, and Uasin Gishu, with Nyeri virtually suspending the vaccination program until new doses are delivered. And of course, that story continues on page 10. Moving on swiftly to the next page, we want to take a look at the succession politics, of course, with regard to Raila being on the ballot. And of course, some party members think their leader is being shortchanged. And Raila is among the 3 ODM men eyeing the presidency. Of course, taking a look at that story is that ODM Democratic Movement, that's ODM leader Raila Odinga, is among the 3 hopefuls seeking the party's presidential ticket in the 2022 polls. And Mr. Odinga also sought to end growing doubts about a referendum and cure concerns that his deal with President Kenyatta is on the rocks in a statement released after a meeting of the party's top organ yesterday. And of course, there's no need for a referendum this year if the National Treasury does not have money. We should plan to hold a referendum next year. That is according to Governor Wycliffe Oparanya. And of course, the announcement by the ODM National Elections Board, that's NEB, which extended the initial deadline of February 26th to March 31st, is expected today. And this would end months of speculation about Mr. Odinga's 5th stab at the presidency. And of course, that is assuming that he beats his 2 deputies in party primaries or they withdraw from the test. So we're going to wait for official communication in as far as that is concerned. But moving on swiftly, let's take a look at still the story of Paul Koinange, the late Kiambaa Member of Parliament. And of course, he was not only the president's relative, but one of the most trusted political lieutenants to the president. And of course, the death of Kiambaa Member of Parliament Paul Koinange, who died yesterday, age 72, brings down the curtains on one of the most dependable allies of President Uhuru Kenyatta. And of course, he was a very, very soft-spoken man. And his 2nd term as Member of Parliament was not only the president's relative, but one of his most trusted, as stated earlier, political lieutenants, both in his Kiambu County and in the 12th Parliament. And taking a look at 2013, the year when Paul Koinange first stepped into Parliament as the Member of Parliament for Kiambaa. He was, of course, re-elected again in 2017. So, of course, the nation is mourning the demise of a great leader. And, of course, we pass our condolences to his family, friends, and relatives. Okay, but taking a look at the vaccine controversy, where exactly is the vaccine? Because that is what Kenyans are asking. According to reports, we are falling short of the AstraZeneca vaccine. So this comes amid claims of hoarding and corruption, with rogue medics charging desperate Kenyans for the free jab in Nairobi. And of course, you can see a picture of people waiting to be vaccinated against COVID-19 outside the gate of one of the hospitals in Nakuru. And of course, at least 3 counties have run out of the AstraZeneca vaccine, as we stated earlier, and went through the counties. And about hoarding and corruption with regard to the vaccine, it comes amid claims of hoarding and corruption with rogue health workers, as I stated earlier, charging Kenyans for this particular vaccine that is, of course, supposed to be free. And high-end private facilities in the city also announced suspension of the inoculation, citing depletion of the free jab. So we are falling short of the vaccine. And of course, Kenya received 1.12 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine through the COVAX facility, and 806,000 were distributed countrywide. And of course, the government rolled out vaccination on March 5th, targeting health workers, security personnel, clergy, teachers, and other staff in educational institutions. But unfortunately, because of the shortage, the people who are most targeted or most vulnerable to receive the vaccination are not receiving the vaccination. So real quick, I know, I want to ask my director, am I allowed to go back to my page? Do we have enough time before we go to news? Okay, thank you, Sawa. So we need to take a look at this story because this was quite absurd, starting with the State Mining Corporation in Tanzania. So they were supposed to give a congratulatory message to their president, that is Samia Suluhu, the first female president in Tanzania. But what these people did, I don't know what happened, this is what they actually did. They were passing a message of congratulation with condolence being attached to it. So this is what they said. The board of directors, management, and staff of the State Mining Corporation, that is TAMICO, joins everyone in mourning the death of Her Excellency President Samia Suluhu, which is quite absurd. You do not wish death on anyone. And of course, they had to give an apology with immediate effect. But taking a look at the stories on this particular page that I absolutely love, proofreading fails that came with grave consequences. So this was one of it. The person failed to proofread. The person who was printing that particular page of that newspaper failed to proofread, and it came with grave consequences because you don't just do that. And of course, moving on, let's take a look at this country that misspelled their own name. Okay, so it would be expected that the currency is immune to errors. At the very least, the country's name should be spelled correctly. But that's a mistake Chile made in 2008 when the Chilean mint released thousands of 50 peso coins reading Chi instead of Chile. Incredibly, the spelling error was only formally reported in late 2009. How did people not notice this printing error? Of course, although the government declined to take the money out of circulation, they did fire the manager of the mint and several other employees. So proofreading fails with grave consequences. You fail to proofread, you fail to look at things, you suffer dire consequences. And then this Vatican, who couldn't spell Jesus. So in 2013, the Vatican wanted to commemorate the beginning of the Pope Francis papacy with a big, bold gesture. And of course, so they commissioned a series of gold, silver, and bronze medals from the Italian mint. And of course, they misspelled the name of Jesus. Of course, grave mistakes with grave consequences. You fail to proofread, you have grave consequences. But right about now, we need to take a look at the news recap. This is basically the stories that were making the headlines in as far as yesterday was concerned, began by our team. So we're basically just doing a recap of all of that, starting with the first story, which reads, despite the government's efforts to contain the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic with the newly imposed restrictions, Kenyans, on the other hand, have come out to condemn the government and accuse them of starving them with measures and with no relief measures. Of course, a section of Kenyans yesterday, that is, took to the street, and they called on the President Uhuru Kenyatta-led administration to open up the country. Milia Kisenya, of course, starts us off on today's news recap. Take a look.
The newly reimposed COVID-19 restrictions after the country positivity rate last week jumped to 22%. A 20% increase since January this year has not been received well by a section of Kenyans. For some, the measures led to the loss of their jobs immediately after the president mounted the COVID restrictions months after lifting them.
Na nyinyi biashara zenu zinaendelea tu, kila siku mnafanya biashara. Amlipi nyumba. If you want to fuel your cars, we do it for you. If you want to eat, we do it for you. We entertain you. Tunawapatia kila kitu ambaye mko nayo katika hii nchi, na bado nyinyi amuone input yetu katika uchumi.
Tunaomba Rais President Uhuru Kenyatta, fungua nchi, open the country.
Yes.
Usituambie ati without further notice. Without further notice, how are we going to pay our rent? We have got kids to feed.
Yes.
And to address this situation, a section of Kenyans who lost their jobs in the restricted hotels and bars have taken their frustration in a peaceful protest in the streets of Nairobi. Their plea, all in one accord, directed to the head of state.
Hatuombi tupewe pesa, tunaomba tuachwe tufanye kazi.
Yes.
Tumekuwa tukifanya kazi.
Yes.
Some of them wamekuwa wakifanya usiku, wengine mchana, but tukifungiwa tunakuwa hatufanyi kazi. We have families to feed, we have rents to pay, we have bills to pay. Tunaomba tufunguliwe tuweze kufanya kazi.
Mr. President, umetuangusha. Do something. Umetudisappoint kabisa. Na hii serikali yako unafikiria tu ni ya matajiri pekee. Unajua matajiri pekee ndio wanaweza adapt kwa hii curfew ya 8, hata ukipeleka 4 tajiri hana shida. Lakini sisi wa Kenya wa kawaida sisi hatuwezi survive. Na hiyo masaa unatupea.
The transport sector has also not been left out, the stringent measures squeezing their pockets dry. Several bus coaches forced to lay off their workers due to the restricted transport activities in the 5 zoned areas.
Kitambo rais akuja afanye atoe matangazo yake, Easter peke yake ilikuwa nimepanga magari ya 40 yalishajaa tayari. Hii inakuonyesha kuwa inadhihirisha wazi kuwa magari ningeyatoa mengi sana. Lakini sasa unajua wakati ilipotangazwa nikaona watu wanafurika hapa kutuuliza iko vipi, mtasafiri ama hivi. Sisi tuko na mbinu yetu, huwa tunawaelezea vile watafanya. Wengine wanataka waregeshewa hela, lakini sasa unajua kuna vile unavyoongea na mteja wako vile itakavyofanyika. Lakini tulikatia watu wengi mno kwa kusafiri wakati wa Easter.
Tulikuwa tunaonelea kwamba kama ingelikuwa ni vizuri kabla mambo ya lockdown iamuliwe, ni vizuri serikali pia iweze kuongea na wale watu ambaye wanahusika na sana kama uchukuzi na usafirishaji wa mizigo, waone ni njia gani mwafaka ambaye inaweza saidia watu ili watu wasiumie. Kama ni maneno ya social distancing, tuzingatie, kila mmoja azingatie, na barakoa watu wafunge barakoa kabisa, hata kama umekaa umbali na mwenzako mita 1, na tuhakikishe kwamba tunazingatia hayo. Sioni kwamba kama serikali ingekuwa na mkazo hii.
According to Samuel Nyandemo, an economic expert, the economy is currently on its knees, and looking its possibility of bouncing back to normalcy could only be placing the country at a risky situation.
We need to open up the economy, and it must be now, not another time, so that we allow small-scale businesses from the informal sector to start flourishing. You know, this is the pillar of jump-starting the Kenyan economy. And if we want to take it further, then let's not open up. The matatu sector contributes enormously, not only in terms of paying taxes, but also in terms of transporting workers from centers of production to centers of consumption and into their respective residential areas. So this is one of the critical sectors that contributes enormously in terms of productivity.
The reimposed COVID restrictions have continued to face a backlash, with the government being blamed for failing to focus on the common mwananchi, who is already struggling amidst the struggling economy with the new hike of prices of commodities. Milia Kisenya for Ebru TV.
And of course, still on the impact that the stringent measures have had on the country, several university students have been left stranded with no means of transport following the closure of their institution. The learners who have only been served with a travel notice in the zoned counties will be forced to spend the night at bus stops within the CBD, as the means of authorized transport that are outside the zoned areas has proven difficult to access. Take a look.
The recent address by the head of state has continued to ravage the scheduled day-to-day activities in the country that had started flowing back to normalcy after the first lockdown was lifted. The harm now spreading to learners, especially those in the universities. These learners, who claim to be from Kenyatta University, will be forced to spend the night at this bus coach following a notice served to them to vacate their respective institution with zero means of transport.
Yeah, the university has given us some shields that we will use to pass those the locked counties, counties. Then, but if we compare with whatever they have given us and whatever the travelers or the company, Easy Coach company, whatever they want is totally different from whatever we have.
We started from the inner coach. They refused to give us the permission to travel because they need the stamp for OCS And we don't know where the OCS of here is because we come from different places.
Dennis Okoth, the manager of a leading bus coach in Nairobi County, says they were forced to come to the aid of the learners. However, the restrictions have proven hard to see them reunite with their families.
Tumeomba wasimamizi wa Kenyatta, chuo kikuu cha Kenyatta, kama wanaweza wapatia nakala ama barua ya kuonyesha kuwa at least wangependa hawa watoto wasafiri kutoka hapo shule kwenda nyumbani. Manake wakiwaandikia ama waongee na serikali kutusaidia ili vile tunaweza facilitate watoto watoke hapa waende nyumbani, sisi tunaweza patiana magari ya kuwapeleka.
For these learners, now this sheet of paper that bears the initials and stamp of the university is the only thing that can help the learners reunite them with their families. However, the modes of transport still remaining as a misery.
My only parent here is only me, so there is nowhere I can go. Hata leo nataka tu kulala tu hapa ndo nione kesho kukikucha the next thing itakuwa nini. So I'm going to spend here for the night.
It is barely a week since the head of state mounted the tough measures to curb the spread of the COVID-19, especially on the transport sector. The effects now not only affecting the travelers, but now spreading to the learners. Media Kisenyo for Ebru TV.
All right, and now to matters BBI and the 2022 presidential race. Former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga is on a race against time by insisting that the Building Bridges initiative, that is the BBI amendment bill, must be subjected to a referendum. In a statement, Odinga confirmed ODM's commitment to the spirit of the handshake with President Uhuru Kenyatta, as well as the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020, which is a product of the BBI. And as Busara Nautman now reports, the BBI process has been thrown into disarray following the presidential directive that suspended the bicameral sitting. I'm sorry about that, but take a look.
Barely a day after ANC and ODM party members clashed on the fate of the Building Bridges initiative, BBI, moments after Parliament suspended House sitting for a month, Raila has insisted on the need to fast-track the process and release the document to the public to enable the people of Kenya to have a final say on the envisaged changes to the constitution via a referendum.
ODM is the one that made a handshake with President Uhuru Kenyatta, and we are ready to support that handshake to the end.
Baba ya mtoto ndio anajua huyu mtoto. Sasa sisi wenye kumzaa huyu mtoto wa handshake, kumlea huyu mtoto wa BBI, utakumbuka pale nyuma, huyu Musalia Mudavadi mmoja huyu. Alikuwa kipinga hii BBI, alipinga handshake
na mwache kublackmail watu bwana. Ati mkikosana kidogo na rais, mkiona rais anajaribu kupanga nchi kwa sababu sasa hivi tuko wakati wa COVID. Amwezi harakisha kila mtu wasonge na speed yenu.
We will support BBI to the end. Exactly. Watu ambao wamekuja juzi wasitishe sisi bana. Watu ambao wamekuja juzi wasitishe sisi bana. Sisi ndio tulijua handshake imetoka wapi na BBI imetoka wapi.
He said the bill entails the reorganization of the executive and Kenyans need to have a say. Raila's statement came after he held a meeting with the leadership of ODM on Wednesday. Those at the meeting were James Orengo, Senate Minority Whip, John Mbadi, ODM Chairman, Junet Mohamed, National Assembly Minority Whip, Edwin Sifuna, Secretary General, Timothy Bosire, the Treasurer, and Gladys Wanga, a member of the top leadership of ODM. Raila said the meeting reaffirmed ODM's commitment to the spirit of his handshake with President Uhuru Kenyatta, which, according to him, created an environment of peace and stability. The BBI process has been thrown into a disarray following Uhuru's directive suspending parliamentary sittings and in-person meeting. The president, in heightened measures to contain the spread of COVID-19, suspended until further notice sittings of the National Assembly, the Senate and the county assemblies. The speakers of parliament and county assemblies are expected to enforce the decision. Ordinary sessions of the county assemblies of Nairobi, Machakos, Kajiado, Kiambu and Nakuru were also suspended until further notice. Elsewhere, Raila has tested negative for COVID-19. The party confirmed via Twitter on Wednesday that Raila is now out of danger of the virus and is focused on pending issues. He tested positive for the virus on March 11th when he checked into Nairobi Hospital for a series of tests after complaining of fatigue when he returned from a grueling 5-day tour of the coast region where he had drummed up the support for the Building Bridges initiative. Busara Naman for Ebru TV.
Right, that is where we close it for the news recap. We need to take a short commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to be delving into a very interesting conversation. What exactly does parenthood entails? As a parent, what are some of the things that you do? What are some of the things that you don't do that maybe don't fit in well with your kids? And how do you prepare yourself exactly for parenthood? And of course, for that particular conversation, we have the best people to discuss it with. I have a very amazing guest who's a counseling psychologist. She's already in studio, of course, feeling very calm, very composed. That is Victoria Masharia. And of course, we're going to be having another guest on Zoom who's a life coach, and that is Caroline Gaidhuma. That is going to be happening when we come back after the break. Be sure to interact with us. Let us know what you think about the whole conversation. That is on our social media platforms at Ebru TV Kenya on Instagram and on Twitter, at Ebru TV KE on Facebook. Official hashtag is NewDayKE. And of course, when that to text pale hivyo WhatsApp. I love you people, by the way. Yani tu watu wangu wa WhatsApp kabisa. Yeah, make sure you're sending in your paragraphs and I will do them justice. Yani 0777672230. All the contact information is at the bottom part of your screen, so please make sure that you're capturing it. Get on your phone. That's the only thing I want you to do as you relax and watch the show. It's April Fool's, so I'm not fooling you, by the way. We're not fooling around. Just do the thing. Anyway, I have a very, very funny clip that we're going to be... All right, welcome back to the show. And in case you're just joining in, it's going to be an amazing, amazing conversation, super jam-packed. And today we're going to be talking about a very interesting thing. But before anything else, I want you to get on into acting. I want you to get to your social media platforms. I'll keep on insisting. Use the hashtag NewDayKE and let us know what you think about the whole conversation that we'll be talking about. We'll be stamping out all of your comments, and also at Ebru TV Kenya is where you tag us. That is on Instagram and on Twitter if you're giving us any comments. At Ebru TV KE on Facebook. And of course via our WhatsApp number 0777672230. And of course I have some amazing guests who I'm going to be chatting with for this particular conversation. Na kama kawaida, I need to tell you all a story. So as I was having this conversation with another friend of mine, not the normal friend that you guys are used to, I have another friend who is now a parent. And I was asking him, what does it mean to be a parent? What does parenting entail? And he was telling me, for him, parenting is one of the most beautiful things that he's ever had to go through. It shifted his mentality about things. It shifted everything in his whole life. And parenting demands a lot of preparation. You just don't wake up one day at oh my God, I'm a parent. What am I going to do? It requires preparation before parenting, during parenting. There are things you have to change. There are things you have to adapt to because times are also changing. How you were raised is not how you raise your kids because there are different situations that they face that you didn't face or did face. So all of that is what we're going to be discussing today. And first and foremost, I have a guest in studio. Karibu sana, Victoria.
Thank you, Aziza.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
You're a counseling psychologist?
Yes.
How do you feel, first of all? I like establishing that rapport, first of all. Unaskiaje? Are you calm?
I feel
How's your
quite
Thursday?
calm. My Thursday is fine, and I feel very welcomed here, so I'm quite at ease.
And being the first day of April, have you experienced any person who's fooled you on April
Fortunately,
Fools?
no.
Are you planning to fool anyone?
No. I think my line of work is too serious to fool anyone. Maybe I would fool another psychologist, but not the general public.
Of course, but Karibu sana, super
Thank
glad
you.
to have you. I can't wait to have this conversation with you. And also on Zoom, we have another guest who is a life coach, and her name is Caroline Gaidhuma. Can we have her on a split, kindly? Caroline.
Hi.
All right, she's here. Karibu sana, I can see you're looking fantastic. How are you feeling this Thursday morning?
Asante, I'm feeling grateful to be alive. I'm feeling excited. I'm really feeling alive. Yeah.
And how are you faring on health-wise?
Well, I'm better. I was diagnosed with COVID, so I've been in isolation. And this is my first day out for a whole day. So I know most of the people will think I'm fooling them when I tell them that I'm back in the office.
Yeah.
But I'm really grateful to be alive.
And I'd like you to start the conversation for us this morning.
Yeah.
What does it entail
Yeah.
to be a parent? Or how can you prepare yourself to be a parent?
Wow, that's a very interesting question because in my work with parents and even in my own experience as a parent, many people come in thinking that they know how to be a parent because they were parented. And most of us do not have the awareness of how the way we were parented has affected us and how it's going to spill over into our own parenting.
Yeah.
So I feel that should be a very critical conversation. Even before that is the question, do I want to parent? Because most of the time, people are just checking boxes and it's to fit into the society. And so we don't ask the most basic important questions. Do I want to parent? If the answer is yes, then how do I proactively and consciously parent?
Okay. Sawa. We're going to be coming back to you in a short minute, but now we need to go back to, of course, my guest in studio. So she's talked about, first of all, as a parent, you need to establish the fact that, yes, I am ready to be a parent. I do want to be a parent. But what are some of the responsibilities that maybe a parent has? That maybe, okay, fine, I want to be a parent, but I don't know what comes with it. What does it come with? What does parenthood come with?
Thanks, Aziza. I think, first of all, we need to define who is a parent, yeah? Because a parent is this person who is a caregiver of their own offspring. And this offspring refers to small human beings, yeah? Small human beings who, according to the law, are below the age of 18. So as long as you're below the age of 18, you still are under your parents' responsibility. So what is the work of these parents? Is to nurture, yeah? We don't only just say that a parent's work is to provide in terms of finance, a roof over your head, food and what have you, but it is to nurture. And nurturing is a deeper word. It means to embrace this child holistically and to find out who is this person. What about them should I help them progress, and what about them should I help them diminish? So it means that this parent also has to be very much aware of themselves. And where we get self-awareness is by being emotionally intelligent. So if I want to be a parent, I need to first of all reassess myself. Who am I as a person? Do I even know myself? Do I understand myself? And like Catherine has said, most of who we are, actually the whole product of ourselves, is because of the environment that we grew up in. You've had parents saying that wakati wangu hatukwenda na viatu shule. So are you telling me that as a child then that should apply? It's a different ball game. We also realize in the times that we are living in, there's a lot of infodemic, too much information from social media, you know, the internet. There's a lot of information going on. And children as young as 3 years old are not the same as children who are 3 years old way back then. They are much more knowledgeable. So the parent has to actually nurture this person age appropriately. What language are you using with this child? What rules and limits are you setting for the child? So parenting is a whole host of responsibilities, caregiving. It may not be a biological parent because we have different types of parents. We have biological, we have adaptive, it could be a step parent. But at the end of the day, their roles and responsibilities remain the same. And what should come out really audibly is the word to nurture.
Okay.
Not just to provide, but to nurture. Yeah.
And as an aspiring parent, I know we were having that conversation with you, and I told you I'm not a parent yet, but as a future parent, and you gave me a word as an aspiring parent in future. Maybe I'd want to raise my kids the way I was raised, because I believe that the values that I have right now have shaped me into the best person that, according to me, I think I am. But the times that with which I'm going to raise my kids is going to be quite different. So what are some of the things that maybe, first of all, is it right to adapt some of the things that you were raised with or some of the virtues and instill them in your own children? And how far do you need to go and establish that understanding that times are different?
Sure enough, you can take some of the values that you are raised up with and, you know, bring them on to your children. But now back to being emotionally intelligent, you know, that self-awareness. What values did I grow up with that I would want to see my children develop with? If I grew up in a culture of hard work, you know, like we were sent to the farms, you need to be organized, you need to go and do whatever you need to do for the family, then a culture of hard work I would want to see in my children. So some of those values I would want to bring to my children. If I was taught that, you know, as a girl, you need to keep yourself this way, you need to be, you know, grow up well, be pure and all that, and wait until marriage to have sexual relationships, I would want to inculcate that in my children because it's a good value, isn't it? In the present circumstances that we are living in, there are so many diseases and so many things that children could easily get into if they don't watch what they're doing with themselves, especially when they become adolescents and they're able to have sexual relations. So there are things that I grew up observing from my parents, which they put in me, that I would like to pass on to my children. But now, maybe for how to bring it out to the children, it means then I need to tune myself to the level of the children. And how do I do that? Through the 3 T's of communication. I need to tune in. You know, like if I'm looking for BBC in Nairobi, I need to go to 93.9 in Nairobi. So if I touch that dial and I get to BBC, I need to tune in, isn't it? Tune into the level of the child. And then I need to also take turns with the child. I don't need to talk to the child, I need to talk with the child. Because we'll go to the different types of parenting. Most children tend to talk, most parents tend to talk to their children and they expect them to do what? To listen, to understand.
I'm talking to you, I've said this, and that is final.
And that is final. And then also take turns with your child. Talk, give me a chance to talk. Talk, give me a chance to also talk. So that we I'm able to tune into the world, in the world of the child. And remember, we're talking about children being from the age of up to 18. So what I apply to a 3-year-old, I'll definitely not apply to an 18-year-old. It has to be age appropriate. It has to be age appropriate.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought out that aspect of being tuned in when you're establishing that relationship with your children. So what are some of the implications or negative implications of you not understanding your children? I've had it so many times. You're like, or me even personally, I feel like, guy, you're not understanding me. Like, I'm trying to explain it. Maybe now I think my friends understand me more than my parents, but now you know that your parents has your best interest at heart more than even your friends. So what are some of the negative implications of not being tuned in or not having that level playing field when you're establishing an understanding with your children? What implications does that have, and how can you solve some of that? Because we've talked about now from a green perspective where I need to understand them, I need to practice the 3 T's and everything. Now, amesema tu hani understand. Sasa ntadu.
Let's go back to the styles of parenting. First of all, you know, we've said about a parent being a caregiver, but there are different styles that different parents will do what? Will use. We have primarily about 4 parenting styles. We have the authoritative parenting, we have authoritarian parenting, we have the uninvolved, and we have the permissive parenting. Now, based on your type of parenting, your children will come out to be what they will come out based on that environment that you brought them up in. If we go to authoritative parenting, authoritative sounds like the bad kind of parenting, but it's actually the best type of parenting because you enforce rules and you let the children know that if you don't follow this type of rules, then there are consequences. And you will be setting the rules with the feelings of the children in your mind. It comes to authoritarian, it's my way or the highway. My way or the highway. We will do it, I don't care what you feel, I am the parent. And if I ask you, it's because I said so. That's what the parent will respond. We have the uninvolved, which could be due to a host of many factors. It could be the parent is also mentally unstable. It could be the parent is into, alcoholism, is into whatever. And then we have the permissive parent, who is more of a friend to the children than a parent. Now, what will be the product of the different types of parenting? Given back to the definitions, if the permissive parent will allow the child to get away with anything, then of course you'll get deviant children. And then we'll blame it on the child, but go back to it being parental delinquency. It's not about the children, it's about the parents. Because you've allowed me to do what I want to do. You've seen those children in supermarkets who say, I want a bike, and they throw themselves. Exactly. They throw themselves on the floor. And then the parents, to cover up their embarrassment, they're like, okay, you take the bike, I'm going to pay for it. And maybe you're running a credit card and you don't even have the money. But a parent who is authoritative will let the child play out the tantrum and then, even almost walk out of the supermarket, and the child will follow. And then later on, they're going to sort it, and the parent will tell the child that the next time that you do that, it's not going to be they're not going to be good consequences. And the child needs to know that is not how you get things, If you need something, come and talk to me. Back to tune in. Back to what? Back to tune in. Talk to me and tell me that you need a bike. Even at 4 years old, you can talk, Mommy, I need a new bike, or whatever. And then we can talk about it. And then I can tell you maybe after the month of August and when I've paid your school fees and all that, I can try and get you a bike. So talk with the child. Also respect the child. Respect the child. Don't dismiss what the child is telling you, because if you now tune out from your child, they're going to look for someone else who can listen to them. And who is this going to be? Probably a friend, probably someone else who is much older than them, who is the wrong kind of company. And then what happens to your child? They have bad values. They go into alcoholism, they go into drugs, they go into early teenage pregnancies, and then you start blaming you start blaming your child. Whereas it is your own failure as a parent.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we also have another guest on Zoom, so I'd like to involve her a bit, and then we're going to come back and speak about the whole aspect of now problematic children, because you've brought out that aspect, Kiasi, so we want to dive deeper into it. But to Caroline, who's also on Zoom. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, sawa. So I want to ask you a question. You've talked about the whole aspect of raising a child, preparations and everything. That's fine. Part of raising a child is instilling certain virtues, instilling certain characters in them. And you're able to contribute to their growth, contribute to their confidence and overall self-esteem. So how do you as a parent make sure that your child has the best self-esteem maybe, or how do you contribute to that? And when is too far with regard to now over-involvement or you're over-controlling them? Could you briefly tell us about all that?
So I like what the counselor has said about, the awareness of the different parenting styles. And that is connected with who you are, is connected with your level of self-awareness, is also connected with your goal for your kids and, how you are brought up as well. So when it comes to teaching values to children, it's more about, are you living those values yourself? Because I like that she said about self-awareness and that people are not fully aware of themselves most of the times. And so a child needs that consistency for them to learn, because children learn through watching more than actually being told. So if you have that awareness, then you ask yourselves, what is the value that I stand for? What is the value that will get me to where I want to be? And then begin to become that, because there are things that children have, and I like the counselor talked about the different stages of a child's life, and what is mostly not identified or clear for most people is the psychological needs of this child, because at different stages, the children have different psychological needs. And from a parent, the children need connection, that is first and foremost, so that they can develop trust. And then they need structure. They also need direction, which comes from modeling. And then they need accountability. So as a parent, if you want, for example, to impart the value of respect to your children, then you first and foremost have to respect them. You have to model it for them. That's where it all starts, because children are looking, we say monkey see, monkey do. That's exactly what children are doing. So when they listen to you and they watch you and you're consistent in your actions and in living out and embodying certain values, that's how they will learn. But unfortunately, most people want to impart values that they don't live. And so you find that some people will punish their children for lying, and then they go out and lie, and the child becomes confused. And what they do is that they take on what you are embodying. So they don't do what you tell them, they do what you do. They do what they see from you, because that is more believable to them, because they've seen it in action. So if you want to impart values, then you need to begin, first of all, identify your own values, begin to live your own values, have conversations with these children about how best to live out these values, even in your own relationship. And that's how they will learn.
So, and I'd like to ask you a question. As we stated earlier, now you've talked about how to foster now self-esteem and certain values when it comes to your children. It's monkey see, monkey do, as you stated it. What they see is what they're going to do. So it's better just for parents to do and let the children follow. But now when it comes to this aspect of self-esteem or just any virtue in general, there's that aspect of, I want to be there. I want you to do this. I want to be in control. I want to see what you're doing. So you end up practicing a bit of an over control, or you're somewhat, I don't want to use obsessive because that can be such a harsh word. You're just practicing over control, and now the child drifts away and doesn't have room to practice now their own feelings and beliefs. Can you talk about that?
Yes, that is actually very, very important, because at the age of around 18 months to about 3 months, that's when the child detaches themselves energetically, vibrationally from the mother. They begin to realize that I'm different from my mom. I am not my mom. And so this sense of I, this ego, this psychological self is being birthed at that age. And that's why you find that they are what we call counter-dependent. They are saying no to everything you say because they are trying to see this is where I end and this is where you begin. So whatever you say, I will say no so that I can establish that this is where I begin. So most parents, what they do, because they themselves have formed an identity around their children, and their children are virtually extensions of themselves, and they want their children to act the way they themselves would act, then you deny the child that growth of their own sense of identity. And so you find that you're always there trying to control their every move because you yourself have not detached from the child. You've not recognized that this child is an individual in themselves, and you're not parenting with curiosity. As the counselor said, are you curious to find out who is this that I brought into this world? What are they about? What are their strengths? How do they think? How do they learn? When you don't have that curiosity, then what happens is the child becomes like an arm of yourself. And you don't want your arm going out there to steal, because that will mean that people will judge you based on that. So the first and foremost thing is to first identify that this child is a different human being. I need to use a language that they understand. I need to tune in, like what the counselor is saying, tune in to them, find out how best can they understand this concept. Another thing is teach them what you want them to do instead of expecting them to do the things right. So teach them, and then once you teach them, then withdraw and allow them to practice in your presence and correct them where you need to correct them. And then you yourself will have the confidence to let go and allow them to do things by their own way. I see a lot of people, because I deal with a lot of people struggling with addiction, and even in their adulthood, their parents cannot allow them to make decisions in their own lives because there's a sort of enmeshment. The parent is like finding the child to be an extension of themselves. So a lot of the times I say to the parent, you need to heal and detach so that you know that this is your life and this is their life. Equip them so that you can have the confidence to let them go and make their own decision. Another thing is allow children to make mistakes. In this human experience, we learn through making mistakes. You don't punish a child who is trying to walk when they fall. You lift them up and you help them again, and they fall again, you lift them up. Do that with everything that you need your child to learn, whether it's wiping the table, whether it's brushing their shoes or tying their shoelaces, whether it's decisions about do we prioritize this or not in a supermarket. Come from that same perspective of I'm allowing them the opportunity to make mistakes, and I'm also there to support them rise up after they've made a mistake. That will give you and them the confidence to do new things, to explore, to innovate, to be creative.
Basically be themselves.
Exactly, be themselves. And we are all suffering from not being able to be ourselves because we are looking out externally to who is looking. Are we going to get punished? And there's something that I say everywhere I talk about parenting. Somebody who has worked as a telephone operator has had more training to operate that telephone than somebody who is raising another human being. It's like there is no training to bring up another human being, but we are depending on this human being to be somebody respectable, somebody confident, somebody innovative, who will probably run the world or the countries. But the one who brought them up and gave them their core structure of belief on which they operate on was not trained to do that. I think as a society, we need to rethink that.
Okay, we need to go back to the conversation and then we're going to come back to you. Thank you very much, Caroline, for that deep insight. There's a lot that she's brought up, and I want to toss it back to you, Victoria. She's talked about the whole aspect of children making mistakes. And now when it comes to making mistakes, there's this statement that a lot of parents make that mtoto amekuwa very problematic. Yani, mi hata nimeshindwa na yeye, sijui nifanye nini. I've tried all I can, but they're just too much. The whole aspect of a problematic child. First of all, how do you identify that? Now, I can categorize this child as a problematic child, and how do you deal with that as a parent?
Thanks for that, Aziza. I would like to affirm what Caroline has said, especially about babies don't come with a manual, yeah? So it's kind of you're on your own, thrown into the deep end, which is where you should know, if I want to be a parent, do I even have the values, the qualities to be a parent? Now, when it comes to problematic children, you need to look at what are the triggers. Why does this child behave the way they behave in a particular setup? But as you look at the triggers, also analyze yourself, because sometimes it could be a mental health disorder that these children are suffering from. We realize something like ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, is often misdiagnosed a lot. Yeah. So the child could actually be having a mental health issue, but you're now treating them based on how are they behaving, where are they behaving the way they are. And ordinarily we would say it's usually genetic. It's a genetical issue, a predisposition. So if you're seeing characteristics of the child which are problematic, and then when you look back at your history, you also see, by the way, when I was this age, I also used to behave in a certain way, then it would be good to consult a mental health expert to rate the behavior of the child. Is it just normal, or is there more to it than we are seeing? So look at the triggers. Yeah, and then what rules have you set for the children? What rules, what limits have you set for them? If you tell an 18-year-old by 4 p.m. I need you back in the house, and they don't come, then what are the consequences? And remember, we said that the rules that you're setting for the children are all age appropriate. So to rein in problematic behavior, you need to set rules, you need to set routines, you need to set schedules. Let them know that if you break these rules, then there are going to be consequences, and then enforce those consequences. Also, reinforce positive behavior. If the child does something good, affirm them, tell them that was really remarkable, you did so well. But we parents, especially in the African setup, we usually look out for the children's mistakes. And the child will really try to, prove themselves and show daddy or mommy that I'm actually hacking these. But we don't affirm them. We don't tell them you did a good job. We don't tell them you cleaned the dishes so well, you wiped the table so well, you swept the floor so well. We always see the table is wet, but why are the seats, returned to the usual position? Why is the remote missing from where it normally is? Why are your books lying all over? We don't usually affirm them when they do something good. And that kind of a child now grows up without a very good self-esteem because they've always been put down. So even when they go to a place where they're being bullied, they're used to being bullied, so they don't stand up for themselves. They grow up, go to the work environment, it's the same thing. If they get a boss who bullies them, they take it because they were not affirmed from when they were young. So reining in problematic behavior, you need to first of all ask yourself, what is triggering this kind of behavior? Then look at the rules and the laws, not maybe call them rules of your household and the limits that you've set for the children and how they are also enforced, what are the consequences, and how am I relating with this child? Am I also reinforcing their good behavior or am I always calling them out, criticizing them over the things that they do?
Yeah, and on that aspect of criticism, there's a friend of mine now, the normal friend that I talk to, alikuwa na contribution, and that friend was telling me, me, one thing I wish, or if I were to become a parent, I wouldn't want to take in, is giving my children that aspect of me, every African parent was the number one. Like me nilikuwa number one, mimi I crossed mountains and mimi barefooted, and there are parents who went through that, and that we definitely affirm because there are people who've come from very far and have done their best to give their children nothing but the best. But the whole aspect of, at times it crosses the line a bit when you give your children unrealistic expectations that you must do this and you must do that. And on that analogy, I had another friend, I have so many friends, oh my God, who unfortunately committed suicide because of that pressure. He was an A student and always on the top of his class, yani kila kitu perfect. I've never met someone with that kind of IQ. But your pressure that all your kids, all your brothers and sisters are like this. Me, I was always an A student. Why have you gotten a B and all that? How do you now ease down a bit as a parent? Not totally throw all the virtues outside the window because that's how you want the kids to be. You want them to be the best they can be. But now how do you ease down a bit as a parent?
As a parent? One, let me call you out on the aspect of committing suicide. We've evolved, we try to say died by suicide. Because if you say commit, you make it sound like a crime. And by the time you're actually dying of suicide, it means that there's something wrong with your mental health. Probably you're depressed. So we're trying to just make it a norm to say that he died by
suicide.
By suicide, on a light note. So the parents, now how can they ease down? It's by going back to the parenting style, by going back to looking at your parenting style. How am I parenting these children? Because if I use authoritative, then I get it right. Because any laws within the house, any rules that I set within the house, anything that happens within the house, the children are already aware that whatever I do as a parent in response to something they may have done, problematic behavior, I have their feelings at heart. I'm actually looking out for this child. And like Caroline is saying, I must tune into the child. I must be able to come to their level and see, as an 18-year-old, what is there? How are they thinking? What is going on in their mind? This 15-year-old who has done 1, 2, 3, at that level, what is going on in their mind? And remember, we've talked about the developmental stages, psychologically, and like when you're about 3 to 5 years old, you're trying to do things for yourself. That's when you're trying to tie your shoelaces. You're trying to pick up cups. You're trying to pick up dishes and take them to the kitchen. But now, if the parent says, no, just leave them there, I'm going to pick them. Anything the child tries to do, the parent does not allow them to do. The child does not develop an initiative by themselves. So they're used to being done for things. And when they grow up, it's the same thing, like she's saying about the alcoholic person, then they keep on expecting their parents to do for them things. And we say that they become now enablers of their children's behavior. So how do I ease off? Go back to your style of parenting. If it's authoritative, what are the aspects of authoritative parenting? It means that I'm a parent who has the best interest of my child at heart, and anytime I correct them or I do anything to them, it is because I have their best interest at heart. And they know, because there is communication. Back to the 3 T's of communication. We've tuned in, we are taking turns, and we are talking.
And we're going to come back to communication, because we really need to take a look at how communication has changed, especially during this digital era. But before that, really quickly, you've talked about the whole aspect of setting limits and now giving your child independence. Could you touch on it a bit, especially when it comes to the tips and that parents could follow, or parents to be aspiring parents could follow when it comes to now the whole aspect of, I want to give my kids the adequate independence. I want them to have their own minds to decide that this is right and this is wrong. I'll give you information so that you can decide whether you also have an opinion when it comes to certain things. You're letting your child also have an opinion. But now where do you set limits when it comes to certain things? Could you quickly take us through that?
We'll still go back to the aspect of communication. We will talk with the children and agree. The limits that I set for an 18-year-old are not the same limits I'm going to set for a 5-year-old. So if, for instance, we want to go out and have dinner and have an 18-year-old in my house, then we will give them the option, where do you think we can go out for dinner? Let them make the decisions, isn't it? Or let us listen to their input. But if it's a 5-year-old, probably I'll be like, let's take you to this particular restaurant. That is the best place for us to do what? To have our dinner. So first of all, identify what limits do we need to set on one particular topic. Let me go back to the issue of coming home, for the 18-year-olds and around that age, 17. So probably they want to say that maybe let me be coming home around 7. Let's talk about it. So what happens around 7 in Nairobi? There's traffic jam, you could get mugged, all sorts of things could happen. So can we, come back to around 6 p.m.? So we negotiate, we talk about it. So first of all, we identify what we want to set rules on in this house. What time do you get back to the house? Let's talk about that. So what time do you want to come back? I, as a parent, would want you to be back home by 3, by 4 p.m. But you can tell me, no, I prefer to come back around 6. Then we negotiate and talk about it. Then now we identify, then we will enforce it. If it doesn't happen, then what are the consequences? And then consistency. If I punish you on day 1, because you came back now at 8, and punishing does not mean necessarily physically harming the child. If I punish you on day 1, then it means anytime you come home beyond the time that we have agreed, I will maintain that consistency. I will go back the same punishment because we identified with you. We agreed. We talked about it. We negotiated. I had said you'd be home by 4. You said allow me to be home by 6. So we agreed. So we have set that limit within the house. But you come home every day strolling in at 9. So what are the consequences? And how do I maintain the punishment that is meted out, which refers now to the consistency. Yes.
So I'd like you to introduce us to the aspect of communication, and then we're going to go back to Caroline. so that you can tell us now in the digital space, what exactly is it? Now, as a parent, you've spoken about communication, and it trickles down to everything that we've been talking about. How you communicate with your child, how you tell them certain things, basically makes a difference. And especially right now, where communication has shifted totally to now digital communication. So you find two parents are working in that particular situation. We've moved on from the type of society where only maybe, it can be, there are certain households where just the dad is working and the mother is at home taking care of the kids, but you find a large majority of the households nowadays, everybody is contributing to the economy. Mommy is at work, daddy is at work, so the caregiver, as you stated and termed it, is now maybe the house girl. So communication, when you're communicating with your child, I'll just give them a smartphone, so at any time I want to access them, I can just video call them, I can just maybe call them. If the caregiver back at home does something, I can quickly call mom and tell her, by them, if I by whatever. She hasn't fed me this, she hasn't given me fruits, or all that's now the shift in communication. What can you say about it, especially in parenthood at this digital time?
Now, there's that very interesting aspect you brought out, especially of the mobile phones, yeah? But I'll take you back to the limits that we set within the household. So if I do give you a cell phone, allow you to have access to a cell phone, if you set rules and limits, within the house, the children develop self-discipline because they know, if I am caught using this mobile phone in the wrong way by mom, then she's going to take it away. And that's the kind of punishment I'll be talking about. If I allow you to have a treat and you abuse that, that honor, then I can withdraw it. I can decide I'm going to keep the phone away from you for about a week because what were you doing? You didn't do your homework and you're using your phone beyond the hours that we agreed. So if you do set limits within the household and tell the children that we are going to do 1, 2, 3, and then they have to face consequences, and then there is consistency, it builds a lot of self-discipline in the children. And when we come back to know the aspect of communication, sorry, I'm really belaboring the point, then it means that the children are in touch with the parents, and they can actually pick up the unspoken words of the parents, and, and vice versa. Because if I have a really good art of communication with yourself, I'll be able to notice when Aziza is saying something, even when she's not talking, isn't it? And then now when you leave, for instance, that cell phone at home with the child, and you're working, and the child is calling and you telling you 1, 2, 3, if they have that self-discipline, they'll be able to control what they need to pass on to the parent. When it comes to communication as well, there's a lot going on in social media, a lot of WhatsApp, a lot of things that the children could be watching, which could also be a really big problem in their minds. Growing up, you may find children now watching things like pornography because they have access to Wi-Fi. So you need to be so much in tune with your child to know. Because you may put spyware or whatever things they put to check on what they're watching, it may not work. But why is this child wanting to watch pornography or wanting to do something wrong with their phones, even when mom is around or they're hiding and trying to do that? It means there's a problem with how they relate with the parents. Because the child will come and ask you, Mom, my friends are watching pornography, tell me about pornography. What will the parent tell you? You will talk about that later. And the later never happens. So the communication needs to be very clear between the parent and the child. If the child comes and asks you, Mom, what is sex? Be willing to talk about it. Of course, in age-appropriate language. I'll give you a little analogy now, quickly of a child who came home with a form. And on the form, it was written, the name, the sex, the age, and all that. And so the child holding the form went to the mother and asked the mom or the father, Mom, what is sex? And then the parent went into the whole bees and honey and what have you story and how two people come together and, gave the whole story. And the child looked at the parent and asked them, so how am I supposed to fit all that on this little box? It just says, sex. So it has to be age appropriate. Find out, why is my child asking what is sex? What do they want to know? So communication has to be very free flowing between the child and the parent. And it's up to the parent to make the environment, conducive. Because if I come to you and you turn me away, either by the you've responded to me or by the you've looked at me, I will definitely rebel. I'll go and Google from the phone, what is pornography? Then I can maybe even watch. But if I have a good rapport with you and I will talk with you as a parent, and I tell you, when you watch pornography, it's going to corrupt your mind because those things are not real, and I explain to you the dangers of watching pornography, then if you have that self-discipline, which we have built now as a result of how we are relating, then definitely that child is not going to watch that pornography.
So we're going to be delving deeper into that conversation, as well as access to information, and especially sexual information, and how you're going to communicate that with your children. And I will, of course, be talking with you about now the digital era, where there's information everywhere with regard to everything, and children are more smarter these days, they say, than the other time. So we need to also understand that. But for now, we need to go for a short break. I don't know if we'll be playing a funny clip for you because that's the only April Fools we're doing here. Yeah, my director tells me that we're going to be playing a funny clip for you. That's the only April Fools we're practicing, by the way, on this show. So sit right and sit tight. But kama kawaida, after the break, we're going to be taking a look at your questions as well. So please make sure you're sending them in. #NewDayKE on Twitter, at EbruTV Kenya on Instagram, and on Twitter, on Facebook at EbruTVKE. And of course, you can catch this whole episode live immediately after the show. And of course, welcome back to the show. And I hope you enjoy your funny clip. Nili preempt kidogo. I'm really sorry about that. I should have chezad kama mimi. But anyways, welcome back, Karibu Sana. In case you're just joining in, we are tackling all matters parenting. We're talking about the do's and don'ts. What are some of the tips that you can practice as a parent? All of that shebang. And of course, kama kawaida, to be a part of the conversation because we need to get straight into it kabisa. Turudi tu penye tulikuwa kwa zilikuwa imebamba imeshika kabisa. Anyway, you can interact with us. You can also call in live, by the way. I want to hear your beautiful voices. 0115885797 is the number, and it will be at the bottom part of your screen so that you can call in live. Let me know what questions you have for any of our panelists, and of course we'll be sampling out all of your comments. I know my producer will do the thing, namwaminia kabisa. And at EbruTV Kenya on Instagram and on Twitter is where you keep on interacting. #NewDayKE at 0777672230 is the WhatsApp number, so get straight into it. Back to you, Victoria. How are you feeling, Bado? Lazima ni establish that you're comfortable. I'm a good host.
Extremely. You're an awesome host.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
So before we went on a break, you brought out some very important issues with regard to communication, with how to communicate now sexual information with your kids. I'd like to take you back to the pandemic period where kids were at home for almost 10 months. During that period, we had a lot of cases of teenage pregnancies. A lot of kids didn't even go back to school because they were expectant. And you know, okay, that comes with a lot to it, a lot attached to it, a conversation for another day. But that information with regard to sexual information, a lot of parents usually say that, si wanafundishangwa reproduction pale shule, wacha tu mwalimu atamwambia, sio lazima mimi nimwambie. So now they're at home. Now it is your turn to make sure that they have that information. So how can parents, especially at a time where kids have access to information everywhere and from everyone. Now, kila mtu anamwambia a lot of things about sex. Maybe unakutana na like msewa ndudhi in certain situations ambao anakuambia, I'll give you pads if you know. It's very, very tragic and very sad that they actually have to go through that, but that's the reality. There's a lot of information on social media with regard to that. So the whole aspect of packaging and giving your kids that information at a time where they do need that information, how does a parent do that?
That's a very tricky question, Aziza, because there's no right way of doing it. You know, up to the point where the parent feels now that is perfect, they're not going to go out there and come back, you know, pregnant. Or some parents come and they bring their pregnant girl and say your son is responsible. But if you look at a good family setup where the parents and the children are in turn, you know, they're together, you'll realize that for a girl, her first love is usually her father. But how does that happen? Because this father tunes in to this girl. From the time the girl is a small child, the father is able to, you know, talk to her, be able to spend time with her. And that will bring us now to the aspect of if you're working too hard as opposed to how much time you spend with your family. So if a father is able to be there for this girl, you know, when she's growing up, when she's a teenager, when she gets to hit the 18s, you know, from the troublesome to the terrible too, all along the father is holding this girl's hand. Affirm in her, you're the most beautiful little girl I know, you know. This girl, it is in very unlikely circumstances that she'll get a man who's going to tell her things and she will believe that man. Her point of reference will always be her father, isn't it? So it goes back to how do I relate with these children? If the boys go out there and their mother, they have no relationship with the mom. You know? So they go out there and then they think that they can tell girls whatever things they can tell them. But if the mom is able to talk to this boy growing up, telling him, you know, you're an awesome boy, you will make a great husband one time when you grow up, let it start from home. Let us be able to tell our children, to affirm them that you're this kind of a person, such that when they go out there to the world, they will not be deceived. And now when you're in tune with your children, you're also able to kind of nip in the bud any problematic behaviors that they will pick from the outside. For instance, where I work at Chiromo Hospital Group, we have, we give care to people who have issues with things like marijuana, with alcohol, you know, with all sorts of disorders. So if someone comes in and they have a problem with marijuana, they picked it up from friends. If you are a parent who is tuned in with your child, you'll be able to notice that there's a change of behavior from my child. Initially, my daughter used to come into the sitting room, would sit down and we would talk. Initially, she would come to the dining room, would sit down and we would talk, would have dinner together. As a father would go out on, you know, daddy's day out and go, you know, take out for shopping. But nowadays, she's avoiding me. What is happening? But if you're not in tune with this child, are you going to notice the change in behavior? You will not be able to notice the change in behavior. So it's very, very important, like we are saying, you must be able to tune into the child, such that if there's a difference in the way they're behaving, then you're able to nip it in the bud. But back to your question, how the parents can help in this kind of a situation is by being very, very finely attuned to their children, in touch, being able to notice there's something going on with this child. And for the children, like we said, to know that this is a safe space. I can go and tell that there's this boy from the neighborhood who's telling me 1, 2, 3. But if my father tells me, wewe nilikwambia mambo ya kucheza na vijana, will I be able to tell him that? I will not be able to tell him. I'll be like, hey, my dad is so harsh, I can't tell him anything about boys. And the more you tell your children, wewe nikone na vijana, that is what they're going to practice. They become now defiant. He's telling me not to do this, and especially when they're teenagers, they feel that, you know, it's a time where they're trying to identify who they are, self-identity. So they feel that they're more in touch with their peers, and that their peers know better than their parents. So when the parents tell them don't do these, and they don't have a good relationship, they go on the rampage, doing exactly what their parents are telling them not to do. So these parents must have a good relationship with their children. Create a safe space for the children to know. If I go and tell my mom that I was actually with a girl and, you know, I was with a boy and this happened, the parents won't, you know, the parents will stop what they're doing and sit down with them and tell them, okay, tell me what happened. I'm not going to judge you, but let me just listen, and then maybe we can talk about it.
That I'm not going to judge you, for sometimes it's a trap, because they tell you, I'm not going to judge you, lakini actually kwa wapi? Kwanza ulikuwa unafanya nini kwa hiyo party? Or something like that. So as a parent, if you could maybe advise the parents, because it's understandable. This is your little girl, this is your little boy, and you can't really understand that wamefikia your stage. You just don't want to let go. And the moment unasikia that she is with a guy, in as much as you're really, really trying to nani, how can you now calm down as a parent and understand that, you know what, they're now growing up, I need to let go a bit and understand that that is a stage they need to go through.
Let the parents be aware of who they are. Go back to self-awareness, because we say that part of being emotionally intelligent, you have self-awareness and you also have self-regulation. You're able to regulate your emotions. So if my daughter comes and tells me, by the way, Mom, I'm actually pregnant, how do I respond to that? How am I going to take a deep breath and say, okay, let's talk about it maybe tomorrow? Or am I going to take the next thing that you know, just hit her, bash her head, which is mostly an African, like, don't come back to this house, you know, just go. So if I am self-aware, then I'm able to regulate my emotions. And we also need to talk about what mental health issues that the children also going through. Because you could be having a parent who also has their own mental health struggles. If a parent, for instance, has something like bipolar disorder, then they need to be aware that you could easily have it in your child as well, because it's genetical, isn't it? So if I am struggling with a disorder, which probably I've not even told them because of the stigma surrounding mental health, so they don't know that their mom is bipolar, but they have behaviors, which of course now the parent is able to pick, that this is not just anything else, it's the bipolar that I'm struggling with. So if people are in an open kind of a relationship within the family, then the children are able to pick up a lot of help from the parents. And also for the parents, they're able to have an easy kind of a stress-free life, because they know my child would never do that. And even if they do it, they will come and tell me, because I've created a safe space.
Okay, you're talking about a lot of things, and I feel that we will change lives, because the whole purpose of this conversation is to ensure that we're avoiding certain problems by now the parents understanding the kids, and now the kids understanding their parents as well, so that all of them are on a level playing field. But now the digital space, it's come with a lot of pros, but the cons are also have their own fair share. So now you find digital parenting, where you have a lot of competition from that mobile phone, that laptop. If they're not accessing it at home, they're now accessing it in school, because there are computers and there are computer studies in a lot of the schools, especially in urban areas. And now you find for this digital items, and especially I remember having a conversation, Pia, and there's this parent who every single time mtoto akifanya kitu amemkataza anam bribe na kama ka PS5 bribe na kama take this, take that. You're always luring them with digital gifts and everything. So that aspect of digital parenting, how would you talk about it?
It's a very dangerous kind of a space to be in because you need to draw boundaries. I need my child to be this kind of a person. I'm nurturing, I'm a parent. How do I help them to get there? If, for instance, something happens and I keep on giving my child a PS5, tomorrow I give them a mobile phone, the next day I give them a tablet, what values am I nurturing in the child? So I need to watch out for that, which is very, very key, very, very important. The other aspect of maybe things like video games, for instance, a child could come and tell me, Mommy, I really, really want to have this, I want to play this video game. It's important for the parent to understand where is the child coming from. And maybe even tell them, okay, fine, you've told me about this video game. Can we go and first of all take a look at it together? Let's watch what it entails. And then maybe the parent can tell the child, okay, fine, this one I think is something that you can do what? That you can actually watch. But parents sometimes will just throw, they've really bothered me, let them just give, here's the money, go and buy. That is very offhand kind of parenting. Parenting, you need to be with your hands, right into the thick of it. Because this is what you want to instill in the child. But if you're allowing the digital era to help you parent, then there is a problem. There is a problem. If, for instance, you tell your child, maybe you want to do something and your child is not giving you space to do it, then you give them the phone. Then, and once they start playing the game, then you can now do what you want to do. But what kind of games are they playing? Can the parents give their children information on when I say I don't want you watching that program, it is because of 1, 2, 3, not because I said so. That is not authoritarian parenting. But authoritative kind of parenting, the parent will explain, when I say don't play this kind of video games or don't bring this kind of friends to the house, let's sit down and talk about it. It's because 1, 2, 3. And then let the child also respond and say, but mommy, and then we talk about it. Let's talk about these. So that when we go and buy that PS5 together, we are buying it because we have agreed that is something that will help you. And then set the limits. You're not going to be on this thing the whole night. You use it for 2 hours per day or 1 hour per day. Homework has to be done. You must shower. You must do what you need to do in this house, brush your teeth, sleep at the right time. So you give them time to also use it, but have a conversation prior to even purchasing it.
Okay. And I can see there's some people who are asking me, Nona, too, my phone is just buzzing and buzzing and buzzing. They're asking where Caroline is. We're having a very small technical issue and we're sorting it out and we'll have her on board as soon as possible. But back to the conversation, we focus on a lot of negatives, and as human beings, we're usually tied to now angaliaring, any negative. But how can we now shift this digital space? Because there's a lot of positive information that our kids can get out of the social platforms or just the digital space in general or the internet. They can Google a lot of digital books and just research and all of that. How can we now shift the narrative? Shift from now them acquiring negative information that of course results in negative behavior and now focusing on the positive.
By having that conversation, by having that communication, for the children to know that this aspect of life is not as it is on social media. If you have these social media personalities who post life to be something, let them know that that is not the reality of life. Let the children know what is real in life and what is not real. Don't stop them from checking. If they want to check about something, let them do that. But as a parent, be there to hold their hand and let them know that this is actually not the real thing, the real deal. But as a parent, you also need to be in tune with your children. I cannot overemphasize on that. You must be in tune with your child. To know even when they're asking you that basic question, why are they even asking the question? Where is it coming from? And even as a parent, don't hide information from them. It's very important that we as parents be truthful, be honest with our children. If they tell you, like for instance, Dad, if someone gets pregnant and they want to abort, what's the problem with aborting? I'm only 18, I don't want to take care of a child before I'm ready to. Then let's talk about it. What are the options to abortion? And if you actually do have an abortion, what are the consequences? There's the psychological aspect of it. It might haunt you for the rest of your life. You could also attempt to get pregnant later and you're not able to get pregnant. If you do have your child, we could, as the parents take the child, we could help you bring up the child. What are the options? Talk with your child, have a conversation. Let them know that this is a place where I can go, where my parents are, and talk to them, and we can be able to come to an agreement. We may agree to disagree, but we have talked about it.
We have spoken about personalities lives on social media. And I remember having this discussion with you before the show, and there was a very controversial song that was being released, and especially for this certain personality, his fan base is kids between the age of 8 to 13. So you find a lot of parents usually, and there was a specific parent who sent in a tweet to that particular personality and told him that, you know, we leave our kids to you to raise them. Whatever you do and whatever they watch basically instills vices, and I'm not in support of it, because that particular parent was not in support of the content that was being released by that certain personality. So you find the personality reacted and was like, by that me, parenting is not my duty. I do not have a child, and whatever information your child has access to is a matter of your control and what you're doing to control whatever your child watches. So you practice control as a parent, don't leave it to the personalities. So that aspect of disparity, okay, what is the role of the parent and what is the role of now these personalities and how they shape the behavior of people, and how can you as a parent ensure that these are the virtues that I need my child to have, and access to this kind of information would not be in line with that. How can I practice now control without overstepping?
There's something that Caroline mentioned. I'm really hoping you can get her back if possible. There's something that she mentioned about parenting with the aspect of hovering over your child. They're never able to do something for themselves. Now, when you talk about authoritarian parenting, they can be helicopter authoritarian parenting.
Interesting.
Because you're hovering over the child, but the end result is that you get what you want from the child. There is helicopter permissive parenting, where now the child gets what they want from the parent. Okay, so I agree with that personality that said it's not my work to parent. Because in a sense, it's not his work to parent. It's our work as parents to do what? To parent the children that we have. But if we're able to talk with our children and let them know what are the vices, what are the values, what can you pick from this person, what can you not pick, then it really, really helps. And she also talked about, Caroline, she talked about role modeling. We said that children see more of what you do than hear what you tell them to do. I'll give you a short story of two young men who grew up with an alcoholic father and used to drink and, you know, those domestic violence at home. And when they grew up and became their own people, you know, after the age of 18, one became a hopeless drunk and the other one never even touched alcohol at all. And when someone asked them, so what happened to you after having grown up in that kind of an environment? You became an alcoholic and you became someone who can never touch alcohol. And they both responded, I watched my father. I watched my father. So role modeling is very, very important. You cannot tell your child, don't do, but you're also doing it. Yeah, preaching water and doing what? And drinking wine. So the children will follow more what you role model than what you're telling them. And you've noticed that even from very small children, they will do what you're doing, not what you're telling them. Yeah. If you're the kind of person who comes and, you know, you have alcohol in the house and you're taking alcohol but telling them, msiguze in your baba, in your daddy, don't touch this alcohol. When you're out of the house, what will the children do? They will take the alcohol and they'll put a little bit of water just to make sure kwenye ilikuwa imerudi. So growing up, the children now become people who drink alcohol. And you ask yourself, where did this child learn to drink alcohol? They always came home early. They never went out. I never allowed them to go anywhere to clubs, but they learned the behavior from yourself. And remember, the boys will be like, Dad is my role model. The girl's mom is my role model. So what she's doing must be okay. Even if she's telling me not to do it, it must be okay. So we must look at that aspect of role modeling.
Okay, and there's another aspect when it comes to parenting, because a lot of, kwa Kiswahili wanasema jukumu huwa inatwikwa kwa mzazi. So there are a lot of responsibilities that are put on the parents, but at the same time, they are human beings with their own lives. So I have my personal life, I have my work, I have my career, and here I have beautiful human beings that I'm taking care of and trying to raise into amazing beings who are going to be a part of this society. So there's that aspect of now balancing work and balancing my family life. I want to be there for my kids, but you find at times time doesn't let me. And I remember the story of a lady that we used to see growing up. This lady used to work like 8 to 5. The whole day ako job. And nowadays when I started working now, I used to understand yani, it's not an easy thing. Ameshinda job the whole day, and when she comes back home, she will ensure that she's cooked, and she's not cooking at ameka two instant noodles and something else. No. She's not just cooking very raw meals as in tu ivo tu yani tu mkule tu mchemsho. No. she makes sure that she cooks and cooks well. Ameka juice kando, amepika pilipili kando and everything. She's done all that, and she's also been at work the whole day, very tired, and she'll ensure that she also has time to take a look at her kids' homework and all of that, and sign her kids' homework and make sure that amemaliza. So that aspect of balancing, not all parents have the ability, because your body gets tired at times and you really, really want to be there, but you just don't know how to strike the balance. How are you able to do that as a parent?
Work-life balance, which means that if you're having enough time for your work and other important things in your life, then your work-life balance is good. But like you've said, that lady would come home and she'd be able to make meals, she'd be able to have time with the family. It's a question of priorities. What are my priorities? Is work more of a priority as opposed to other things like family, like my social life, you know, like sports, things that will also help me as a human being. So it's important, if you want to have a work-life balance, to write down a list of your priorities. And then also to identify rituals, yeah? By rituals I mean, can we have dinner together? Can we have breakfast together? I need to catch up with the family. If I work in a place where they have flexi hours, can I change my hours so that maybe I leave early and I go early in the morning so that I have more time to catch up with the family? Having work-life balance also means that you need to create time for things like school concerts, you need to create time for visiting your child in school. Have you ever been to school and you find that one child who nobody visited? Why? Because the parents were very busy. That child grows up traumatized. No one was there for me. They have issues of abandonment, and they probably develop mental health disorders because of there was no one there for me. When other people are being visited, no one came to see me. And maybe their parents, in all honesty, were busy working somewhere, very busy trying to make money for the betterment of the family, but neglecting the most important thing. Because if I set out to be a parent, then I'm going to go the whole mile. It means also providing time and myself for the rest of the family. Because the aspect of nurturing, we said, is also not just about providing a roof over the head of your children, giving them clothes, basic needs and all that. It goes over and above that. It means that you're trying to also, nurturing is much more bigger than just those provisions that you're making. And how do you nurture if you're absent? So work-life balance means that you must set your priorities. What's a priority for me? Family is a priority. Work is also a priority. But how do I navigate my workload? Then have time for the family. It means not bringing work at home, leave work at work. It means not coming that laptop, and then when dinner is about to begin, you're there opening your laptop, and everyone is thinking, oh my God, here goes Dad again. And you'll be on that laptop up until the time the children have slept. That means you'll not be able to find out how the children have been, you know, the entire day. You'll not be able to catch up with them, understand what their life is all about, because you're not having a work-life balance. It's also very important for yourself as a person, because you need to create time for yourself. You need time to go to the gym. You need time to do healthy things for yourself. That way, you have less stressors in your life. Because if I cannot balance between work and life, I'll always be a hurried kind of a person. And that will bring a lot of stress, which now leads to a lot of mental health conditions, even possibly depression, because I'm not able to navigate my life. There's too much work happening. Yeah.
All right. And you've talked about the whole aspect of some parents can be a bit distant, especially now your aspect of visiting, you're in a boarding school and your parents are not there. So in the tragic situation where maybe your parent is now too overwhelmed, like it's not their fault, they're overwhelmed, and maybe you're raised quite distant from them. There are certain jobs that are absolutely very, very demanding, and you find that due to that, it's not encouraged, but you try as much as you can. Maybe you can just like a week or anything, and now the child is distant. Now that relationship, that bond is not there between the two of you. And now to the aspect that now it has trickled over to mental health disorders, the mambo kayo. How can you now help your child pick himself or herself up? Maybe start visiting like maybe a counseling psychologist or just someone who can help them fix that, and out of that build your relationship back and ensure that you're trying, Pia, as much as you can, despite your really tough situation, to be a part of their life after that whole thing has happened.
Now, the unfortunate thing is that, you know, parenting, the fortunate rather, not the unfortunate thing, is that parenting being a parent is a choice. You choose to become a parent. So find out, what does this whole thing about being a parent entail? It means that you must be responsible for this person up until they attain the age of 18 years. And what happens in between? They go to school, they get sick, you know, they're all things that happen. So as a parent, what is my role in all that? But unfortunately, like you're saying, some parents are really, really busy, and maybe it goes back to their workload. But at the end of the day, we are saying, create some sort of a ritual. There's no parent who is that busy that they don't have a family that they have to think about. It could be they're working out of the country. It could be they're sent by the government or wherever for like 6 months and what have you. But nowadays, like you're saying, the digital age, we have Skype, we have Zoom. Catch up with your children. It's important for you to be able to catch up with them. Otherwise, when you get home, they're the kind of children who, when you get in, they go to their bedrooms. Because who is this strange person? We don't even know who he is. He comes, packs, a suitcase, and then leaves like for so long. So we don't even have a connection. Now, that kind of a child who grows up with the parents, let's assume both parents are not there, and they probably now have abandonment issues. My parents were never there for me. So what do? They get different caregivers. Now, these different caregivers, remember, are from a whole different environment. You don't know what values they have grown up with. You don't know what kind of environment they grew up in to form them to be the person that they are. So the values that you think you want in your children will not be instilled because they are not there. Caregiver. You are the primary caregiver and they're the values that you wanted. But not they're the substitute, actually, caregiver, isn't it? So how do you help that kind of a child? One, you need to check in with the child and find out, are there any issues arising as a result of us as parents not being in the child's life, and you realize the child has become very problematic in school. They're the bullies in school. They're the kind of children who answer back to the teachers. So of course there is a bit of behavioral issues there. Then you decide, maybe let's have the school counselor talk to this child. If it doesn't work, then we can also go to counselors outside the school, because ordinarily if you're counselor and you're also teaching, that dual relationship doesn't usually work very well, because the child will be like, this is my teacher, how do I tell my problems to the teacher? So if you're able to get a mental health specialist and let the child talk about what is going on in their lives, and then you as the parent, walk that journey with them. Be there to listen, be there to hear what the psychologist or the counselor is saying. This child has been complaining, you are never there for them. They were introduced to bang, they were introduced to early sex, they were introduced to other vices, and they have turned out this way, and they're blaming you because you were never there for them. And then let the parent come down to that level of apologizing and saying that I am actually sorry I was not there for you, and let them not try to justify themselves in as much as it is a justifiable scenario, because they're out trying to make money for the betterment of the family. Let them just acknowledge their failures, because once a parent also acknowledges their failure to the child is able to see that, Allah, my father is also human. He's actually a human being. He's come down to my level, and then try and work on building a better relationship, which is where people like Caroline come in, coaching you on how to live together as a family.
Okay, and there's this whole aspect of certain environments that you grew up in as a child, now to adulthood, and now when you want to become a parent, live down with you until now you're an adult. Let's say I had one of my parents who was a drinker, like alikuwa na lewa kabisa, and maybe there was a lot of violence that I grew up with at home and everything, and now that I want to become a parent, what do I need to go through, or what are some of the steps maybe that you as a counseling psychology would counsel a person who is in that situation? I want to be a parent, I've established the fact that yes, I want to be a parent right now. How do I let go of now my past and you helping me counsel myself in preparation now to be a parent?
To be a parent. So essentially, assuming, let's talk about something like alcoholism. I want to be a parent, but I've been battling alcoholism for as far back as I can remember, because I grew up in that environment where maybe even my parents were brewing something like changa. So it was basically in our environment, and we learned how to drink it from a very early age. But now I want to become a parent, and the life that I have lived, I don't want to sit on my children. So first of all, we'll talk about the effects of that alcohol. How has it affected you? Initially, when probably you come to a facility like ours, what we will do is something first called detoxification. We try and help you get rid of the toxins within your system. And as we do that, we work alongside a psychiatrist and help you understand what is alcohol abuse and why are you abusing alcohol. That question is also usually very, very key. Why are you taking alcohol in excess? And most people will tell you, oh, it's because my father used to drink. But what is triggering you towards drinking? Because if you're drinking and you're zoning out, it's because you want to be away from reality. So what is your reality? What is it about your life that is stressing you? Because what normally happens is always a trigger. I don't just drink. Maybe I'm bored and I have time on my hands, and then I decide I want to go and have fun with my friends, and the only way we can have fun with my friends is to do what? To go drink. Maybe I'm feeling so stressed. Maybe I have this workload, I have a bad boss, and I'm feeling so much pressure, I need to go and drink to calm my nerves. So there's always a trigger. Then we teach you how to cope with this trigger, how to identify the trigger. If my boss is a trigger, he gives me too much work, he shouts at me, so it gives me a lot of stress. How do I manage that stress? So that it starts becoming a trigger. Because I'll probably have the same boss for the rest of my working career in that particular company. He'll probably not change. So it's me to be able to deal with that stressor, either by accepting it, by adapting to it, by altering it, or by aligning myself to it. So we teach you how to identify your triggers and how to deal with the stress. Then we also teach you how to change your thinking patterns using something that we call cognitive behavior therapy, cognitions from the mind and how you behave. We normally say when something happens, you first of all think about, a thought comes into your mind. Based on how you think, you get a feeling. Based on how you feel, then you get behavior. So we teach you how to catch your thinking patterns. And we realize that mostly these thinking patterns are normally very automatic. Yeah? You could have someone jumping to conclusions, catastrophizing, which means that anytime you see worst case scenario about a particular situation. So we teach you how to change your thinking patterns to help you be able to cope with what is going on in your environment. So we've told you about the triggers. You're able to catch what your triggers are. What are your triggers happen? What are your triggers causing? They're causing a lot of stress. So how do we manage the stress? And part of managing the stress is also going back to your thinking patterns. So we give you a whole a way of navigating the alcoholism. And then, of course, we'll tell you about the impact of alcohol on your body, on your system, even the physical aspect. But we also deal with the psychological aspect from that angle. You identify the triggers, deal with the triggers, deal with things that we call cravings. When I feel so thirsty, I want to drink alcohol, and so the only thing that can quench my thirst, we tell you how to deal with that craving. Maybe if you hold on for a few minutes, then the craving is going to disappear. Or do something called distracting yourself. Go for a swim, call a friend, do something else, but
don't take alcohol. Okay, and in summary, I'd like you to look at that camera, that is your camera, and give some closing remarks to our viewers. We've had the whole conversation, we've addressed a lot of important issue. How would you like to close it?
By saying that, unfortunately, parenting does not come with a manual, but we have very many avenues of getting information on how to parent and parent in the right way. The most important thing is be able to identify what is my parenting style. And then from there, you're able to pick up and do what you need to do as a parent.
Okay. So now I have a gift for you. I have a very, very good gift for you. I hope you're going to love it. It's via a video. Okay, so I'm gonna play her very, very quick video, and I want her to identify what that particular video is asking. There's a fruit that's being shown in that video. If you identify it, I have something special for you. My director, could you kindly play us that video?
It's got that beautiful green flesh with the seeds all throughout it. If you take that piece of banana and the piece of kiwi, put them flesh sides together, you can then put it in a pot of soil, cover it by about 1 inch, and water it. It takes about a week for the healing process to occur, but then they begin to grow as one fruit. After about 2 weeks, it begins to sprout up above the surface of the dirt, growing just like a root vegetable. And then after about 3 weeks' time, it matures into a full fruit. When you harvest it then, you see it's got that protective peel of a banana, but when you cut into it, it's got the beautiful green flesh of the kiwi. The taste is a delicate balance of the two. It's wonderful sliced and placed on fruit salad, or even eaten on its own. This is an amazing way for you to combine all of those scraps and peels that you might otherwise throw away and grow a completely new garden. I do hope you'll give this project a try. Experiment with the clippings of fruits and vegetables you use every day to see what kind of plant hybrids you can create.
All right. Well, do you think that's what name is that fruit given?
It's a kiwi cum banana.
Do you think it's possible?
It's possible because you're a product of your environment.
Oh my God, you fell into my trap. It's April Fool's. It cannot happen.
Oh, thank you.
Got you. But anyways, thank you so much for being a part of the show. That was how we closed the show because I wanted to see if you're going to fall into my trap. And I told you I have no. The trap was I'll not have an April Fool's nani for you, trick for you. So you actually bought into it.
I bought it.
Me and trusted me.
And trusted you, Aziza.
But anyways, thank you so much for being a part of the show. I appreciate you, your good vibes, Kabisa, and you've brought in a lot of insight, especially to an aspiring parent. Now I know when I am ready to become a parent, what it entails for me and what I need to do better to ensure that I raise my child in the best way possible. But right about now, oh, my producer, oh my God, utanimaliza. But anyway, let me not tell them what you told me because tutapatana tu huko nje. Anyway, it's come to that time of the hour where we need to bid you goodbye. It's been an amazing 2 hours. I hope it was impactful to you because that is the whole purpose of this conversations that we have right here. It has to give impact, and I hope you did learn a few things and you're going to practice them. But we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place, for Feel Good Friday. We're going to be feeling good, yani kesho, and it's not an April Fool's joke. I only had one, and that's it. Anyway, again, my name is Aziza Hashim, and kama kawaida, do have yourselves a lovely day ahead.